Alrighty, hello, welcome back to A Slightly Twisted Female. I'm your host, Brittany Rue. Thank you to those who are still here. I've had a little bit of an exodus of subscribers, so I guess since I can't really tell what the problem is, but since I started sort of digging around and speaking out about Gen Spect, seems like I've ruffled some feathers. Now, I also think part of it is my criticism of Kelly J. Keane and her approach to Stella O'Malley, which again, I understand. And I want to be clear, okay? Kelly J. Keane is not my problem here. She is on our side. I don't question that for a minute. I do, however, wonder whether or not I wondered when I first saw that she went on with Stella if she was in a place to fully call Stella out. Fact of the matter is, they're in UK. There's just like a lot of entanglement between these different gender critical figures in the movement, and there's a lot of like crossed wires and people who work together and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, I just knew that would have been like a tough political move on Kelly J's part to sort of like hold a firm line. And I'm sorry, whatever you guys think or not think, like I think my initial instincts was pretty accurate. Now, I did go back and people said that I guess Kelly J. Keane had sort of like ranted about the Gen Spect thing on her own podcast. And it was like, I was finally listening to it this morning and I was like, yes, okay, here is the stance that I would have expected her to take. And it was the stance that I had sort of seen her formulating while on Twitter. And I was just really disappointed to sort of see where it was like, well, we're going to come together on Benjamin Boyce's. I think choosing to go on Benjamin Boyce's platform was dumb. And for everybody who's told me that, oh, Kelly J. Keane will go on any platform and will, speak to anybody, that's not true. Because when I had originally talked about wanting to debate a trans identifying male, she was one of the people to come out and saying, I don't know why you would want to do that. We shouldn't be having these guys on our platforms. We shouldn't be giving them any sort of like, we shouldn't really be engaging with them like that. And I was like, but KJK, I said, some of your most powerful moments has been you shutting down these AGPs and trans identifying males, and for me, it's like, where she's had experience and opportunities to sort of be debate and confront these guys. I haven't had the same sort of opportunities. And I just thought it was helpful for me to sort of hone my ability to sort of sharpen my debate skills. And I felt like I was in a place to do it. At that time, and it just sort of revealed, because again, the guy that I had debated, it's one of the sort of like Blair White true trans in-group guys that everybody's like, no, he's one of the good guys, he's a gender critical trans, and like, for the record, and I'll say it for like the 50 billionth time, and I just feel like it's so obvious, there is no such thing as a gender critical trans person. It like doesn't make sense. It doesn't exist. And I'd said this a while ago. I said, what's going to happen now as now that Elon Musk and the sort of tides are changing in terms of the aggressive censorship of gender critical voices is being lessened, and now more gender critical voices are able to sort of come to the forefront, we're going to see this birth of the sort of true trans and the gender critical trans thing, where it's like a bunch of, forward thinking trans identifying people are going to realize that the trans ship is sinking and that they need to evolve so that they can sort of, survive this next gender critical backswing. And it's like, what's the most obvious move to do strategically? Well, come out as gender critical, come out against childhood transition, because isn't it convenient as an adult man to sit there and say, oh, I'm against childhood transition, right? Because it doesn't affect them. It doesn't impact their ability to get their hormones. It doesn't impact their ability to still do what they want. Again, it's a bargaining chip. and again, and I think a lot of these trans identifying people, who are not dumb, not all, for the ones who aren't dumb, realize that it is childhood transition that really put the trans thing on everybody's radar. Prior to that, no one cared. It was like adults can do what they want. If you want to be a weirdo, go ahead, just do it over there. But then once it came out that, we had the Chloe Coles of the world, we had people coming forward, we saw it was this sort of like drawn out snuff video of Jazz Jennings, and we watched this drawn out, just sort of horrifying, just like live stream almost of this child whose life is just destroyed. And we're watching it almost in real time. And it was like, kind of like, whoa, this is not what we all thought we were supporting when we, kind of came forward and was like, well, we're going to support the LGBT. So again, I think it's a lot of these forward thinking, trans identifying people, or these, gender ideologues who realize, okay, if it's the childhood transition that they're really mad about, we can sit there and say that we're against that, and we're going to push back against that. And remember, that's always been something that they've been willing to concede, right? For forever. WPATH, everybody has always said that childhood transition, it's something that doesn't happen. They're being hyperbolic. It's on a case by, but then it was like, okay, well, once we prove that, yeah, it is happening. And it's like, how can you say that it's not happening when there's literally a TLC reality show, like documenting like stage by stage about how they're medically transitioning a child. No, it's not happening. Like, wait, bro, what? yeah, it is. And you're like showing us that it's happening. There was like, oh, well, it's a case by case basis and da 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 da. And so it's like, it's like, it was such an obvious move for these people to then be like, okay, well, we're going to, so anyway, so it's like, so enter Gen Spect. Okay. Again, no one knows what they do. Okay. When I first heard about Gen Spect so November of 2021 is when I first started my YouTube channel. Okay. And to put everything in perspective, I think it was like the summer of either 2020. I think it was the summer of 2020 that I like started going gender critical. Right. It was either 2020 or 2021. It was probably 2020. No, it was like around 2019 and 2020 when I started to listen to, I started listening to like more Republican material. Okay. I used to be like a hardcore leftist. I was like the wokest in the room, all that kind of stuff. And then it was the Blacksit. It was like the Black Republican movement, the sort of rise of, call of like, people like, Brandon Tatum and Candace Owens and Black Conservative Perspective. A lot of people like this who really were like the first time I started to hear sort of a different narrative than I'd been listening to before. Then the Loud and County thing happened, and I tapped into Matt Walsh. And I've said this before, Matt Walsh is probably one of the people who piqued me, and it's like, I'll admit that. So I originally had always had a plan, I was recovering from cancer. I had like just recovered. I had a lot going on and I really needed like an outlet. So I said I was going to start a YouTube channel, and I was like, I wanted it to be about like women's health and things like that, and everything that I had learned about how much we don't care about women's health and how much we're so far behind in actually taking care of the sexual and reproductive health of women. That was the main thing, sexual and reproductive health of women. Then when I realized everything that was going on with trans medicalization, I'm like, well, I guess I got to start here because this seems pretty important. I thought I would maybe spend like a couple videos on it and like get off of it. It's been 2 years now since I started my channel and I haven't been able to get off of it. I've told that story before. I say all this to say, I've in that short period of time. So I entered Gen Spect. So when I first started really getting into like gender, I started off on Instagram. And then I discovered Exelanzic, who binge watch. I used to I idolize Exolansic. Every time she would come on, I was like so excited. I used to, and then it was like Exolansic, and then everybody's like, you got to check out Your Kid and Right. Everybody's like, if you watch Exolansic, you got to check out Karen Davis. That's the next one. So then I found Karen Davis, and the thing that I always say that was more complicated about getting into Karen Davis is that Karen Davis was working on some really kind of like complicated like topics that were not for like, they're not like introductory topics. These are for people who have like been in the gender critical scene for a while, who knew the history of what was going on, the sort of inner workings of things. And I found it hard to kind of get into, because I was like, well, I don't know who a lot of people are that she's talking about. And this was kind of like right when she was really going in hard on Gen Spect. And I was like, and I saw all the kind of controversy and a lot of people who were saying like, oh, this Karen Davis is just really, she's just really, just a chaos agent. She's an agent of chaos. She just wants to create infighting. And I just don't see the point of all the infighting. And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm kind of like sampling this woman. She sounds like fucking smart as shit. Everything that she's saying sounds pretty legit. So I kind of like held off. And then I always tell this story. And then on Christmas Eve, when I was finishing up like last minute wrapping presents, I decided to binge watch Karen Davis. And I started from the beginning. I got into, it was like the, what was it? The LGB Alliance. Or no, not LGB Alliance. It was, the Gender Dysphoria Alliance, when she was like really going in on like Mars and like Buck Angel. And then Vanessa Vokey was tapped in. See, Vanessa Vokey still had her channel back then. And then I remember it was Exolansic and Karen did that like joint live stream, which I still think was such a great live stream. And I know that they don't get along now, but it's like that was such like a good era of like gender critical YouTube. So, and I started, was like, oh, wow. And it just seemed like it was just so much to know and wrap my head around. And so I was always grateful for Karen Davis as sort of a bookmark for that. Then what happened was Karen Davis lost her channel. And I think that happened from several reasons. But I think that one of them is, I know that Stella O'Malley and Gen Spect did go after Karen Davis, because Karen Davis was like, relentless. Anybody who knows Karen Davis, she streams daily. She streams daily, and she's a very smart lady. And one thing that I like about Karen Davis, love her or hate her, Karen Davis is not mincing words or backing down on something that she believes in, and I think that, I've always said, I was like, I do not ever want to get on Karen's bad side. Karen can be a little scary, sometimes, like she's just, she's like one of those people you do not want her mad at you, because she will like eviscerate you. But it's like, we need that. If anybody has ever seen, like, it was like right before she had her channel taken down, when Posey Parker did her US Turf and USA tour for the New York. There's this like clip, I think, that went super viral of Karen Davis. Just verbally slaughtering some Troon on the street. It was like surgical the way she took this kid down. He like couldn't even speak. He's like, it was so good. I think I watched that little like 2-minute clip like 30,000 times and was just like in tears. So like I said, and then it was like, and then I think what pulled Karen away from Gen Spect was when the intersex stuff happened. So we had like the case, and that really centered around Exolansic taking the position that people with complete androgen insensitivity syndrome are actually male, which I think is accurate. And that created like a whole division in the gender critical world. And I kind of put my focus onto that. But I remember it was around that time, it's funny because it's around the same time when this whole Gen Spect dust up happened. There was, I guess, like another Gen Spect conference, and there was a picture that was posted with, I guess, Corinna, the Heterodorks podcast guy, which again, everyone recently has been telling me to like go check out Heterodorks and asking me what I think of some whatever that they did. And he like tried to check me the other day on Twitter, and I was like, huh? And then I looked into it, and I was like, oh, it's a Troon. first, I've never in my life watched an episode of Heterodorks. I didn't know who they were until like a couple weeks ago. I've always heard Corinna Cohn's voice or name just because of Karen Davis, but it's like, it's so complicated and there's so many pieces to this that when people are like, oh, you know, what's with all the infighting? I just don't like when we're doing the infighting. It just seems like it's just a bunch of infighting. And it doesn't seem helpful to have all the infighting. And it's like, I understand because again, even me, it was hard for me to keep up with before all these different names and these different pieces and who's friends with who and who's done what. And so it's like, that's what I think is so especially difficult about the Gen Spect topic is that it's really hard to nail down. And it's like they're so disingenuous about a lot of stuff. And the more that I've started to follow Stella O'Malley, I realize her, James Cantor, they'll just straight up lie. I mean, they mislead, they lie, they won't stand on what they say. And then one thing I guess the Corinna Cohn guy had said was he had said that like Gen Spect really needs to finally make a clear mission as to what they are. And let me find all this. So it's like I'm the reason why it took so long for me to even get on this stream was because I was trying to like compile all of this stuff. And it's like there's just so much. But all right, so let me take a look. Again, it's like who the hell is, you know, Gen Spect? You know, and I think that part of making it such a constant moving target, and I think that's maybe part of the strategy. I think by not having a clear-cut mission statement, not having a clear-cut, you know, board members that's consistent, that we know who's who and who does what. It's like they can never really be held accountable for anything. If you listen to Stella O'Malley, she cannot answer very straightforward questions about what it is exactly that they're organization does. It changes from month to month, year to year. It seems like it just has this huge, we should be skeptical and critical of any organization that claims to take on such a wide swath, a wide just like network almost of things that they claim to do. Right. So at first it was like, well, you know, we help families, right? We help families with, you know, gender confused children. We help team them up with, I guess, therapeutic resources, but we don't employ these therapists, but we're giving money for these. And it's like, come on, like, what are you talking about? So in her conversation with Kelly J. Keane, Stella O'Malley says, well, Kelly J. Keane is like, what is Gen Spect? Even KJK is like, what the hell is it? Stella O'Malley's like, yeah, well, she couldn't give us a clear answer, but like, I guess she was like, yeah, it's kind of like a lobby group, and we're not a therapeutic organization, but we do have Beyond Trans, which I guess is under the umbrella of Gen Spect, and it like hooks up families with therapeutic resources. And then she was clear to be like, oh, but we don't employ these therapists, but we give money. So we give like grants so that the families can go see these therapists. And I'm like, well, I guess my question for Stella is, are you giving money directly to the families, like as a grant so that they can go, and then you give them a list of resources and then they can go use that money, however, for their kids? Or are you sending money? Are you like cutting a check to the therapist that you're referring them to? You know, I mean, it's like, what if like a family was like, you know, we want some resources, but like, we also just want, you know, we want to see a therapist, but we also just kind of feel like we need to help our kid unplug from social media, right? There's clearly a social media addiction. There is an addiction to his smartphone. And we think the best thing for the child to do would just to do like a 2-month-long like Outward Bounds program, you know, where they go and do like equestrian therapy, equine therapy. They're riding horses. They're completely disconnected from the internet, off the internet, no access to porn, no access to social media, no access to any technology, just like a low tech. I mean, would that be something that they would help give money to? Or is it that they're only cutting checks for these therapists that are on their list, right? So, all right. So, and it's like, So that's what makes it when everybody's like, oh, so what's your, the issue with Gen Spect? There are so many different things, but I do want to focus on one particularly shady character, Dr. James Cantor. And I think all of this is relevant to like the Phil Illy thing. So again, and I'll say it again, everybody is like, oh, here's my problem with what Kelly J. Keane did. Okay. And I've lost like 30 or 40 subscribers in like a day just from criticizing, I think, Kelly J. Keane's approach to the whole Gen Spect thing. And that's okay. I just think that's a little bit odd because, again, I'm not saying that Kelly J. Keane does not do phenomenal work. Okay. She does. We need her. I look up to her. I think she's like a heroine in this movement. It doesn't mean that she's, it doesn't mean that she's perfect in everything that she does. And it's important to point out because my issue with how she approached the Stella O'Malley thing, right? And let me be as clear as possible. She has relationships with a lot of these people. With Benjamin Boyce, she's been on Benjamin Boyce a few times. Benjamin Boyce is now, I guess, part of the media arm of Gen Spect. And rather than, so Kelly J. Keane is like ranting about Gen Spect and everything she's saying is spot on her own thing, right? So she could have invited Stella O'Malley onto her platform, or they could have, gone on to Gen Spect a wider lens, right? Or she could have picked like a totally neutral, like another woman, right? Could have picked like some other whatever, but of course I know that Stella is skittish and she's cowardly, and she's revealed that in many different ways in the past few weeks and months and years. So I guess they had to make it, Benjamin Boyce's, even though Benjamin Boyce has been spending the past few weeks denigrating any woman who has spoken out about the Phil Illy thing. And again, it's so hard because it's like, I know some of you guys are just more casual observers, but like really quick. So Gen Spect is this UK based, or I guess it's like international, but there's a woman named Stella O'Malley. She's from Ireland. Her and Sasha Ayad have this thing called Gen Spect, which again, what does Gen Spect mean? Does it mean gender spectrum? Does anyone know? Is gender spectrum? Is that what that means? And no one knows exactly what it does, but they get a lot of money and they have a lot of relationships with like academics and stuff that deal in the topic of like transition. And they claim to be against childhood transition. They claim to, not be true trans, but there's just a lot of contradictions. They have a lot of relationships with these AGPs and trans identifying males. And they seem to, yay, Karen's in the house. Anyway, and Karen, I'm saying it right here. I really want to get Karen. I want to do a joint stream with you, Karen, because I want to pick your brain because I feel like you are so much like more versed in this than I am. And I'm like trying to keep up and catch up. But Karen, anybody who hasn't, and I'll say it a million billion times, anybody who hasn't already, you got to follow Karen Davis. And if you really need like a full catch up, go on to Odyssey, go to Your Kid and Right. And I'll post the link in here. I'll post it as many times as I have to. Your Kid and Right. This is why her channel got taken down for real. Because she's poking around where she shouldn't be poking around. Okay. It's all neat and tidy when it's like the two sides. It's like the pro-trans and the gender criticals going after each other. But when we have to actually look at our own group and see where there might be like infiltration, then everybody's real uncomfortable, but Karen was really, unafraid to do that. And that's what I appreciate. So, so it's Your Kid and Right. And she talks, about history of a lot of this, kind of like raised the red flag on a lot of this early on. So again, just the background, so Gen Spect, we don't really know what it does, but we do know that they're creating like educational materials for schools. They're advising schools on issues related to gender. And Stella O'Malley has very recently come out and said that her main goal is to replace WPATH. For anyone who doesn't know, WPATH is the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. WPATH, who is somebody that if you want a deeper dive in WPATH, you need to check out Genevieve Gluck. Genevieve Gluck and Redux have done a lot to expose, again, these nefarious connections that these groups, organizations have. So WPATH, and this is why we've got to be, wary and careful of, the people in academia. A lot of people in academia, these tenured professors who have entire institutions that support them, right? Who give them money to do whatever sort of research that they want. And they give them access to all of these other academics, and they're just very plugged in. And it's like being a tenured professor. You have a lot of access at your fingertips, and you can study what you want, and you can allocate those resources the way that you want. Okay. And, WPATH is it was like basically the trans lobby. It's exactly like Genspect, right? It's like, except for they take a much more extreme approach for like pro-medicalization. And they're the ones who are giving the medical recommendations to the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, and then I guess, things like Tavistock, which was shut down in the UK. I know more about the US system, but it's, again, they're the ones who are giving these sort of like recommendations. And not only that, but they're also helping to develop things like the DSM, which is the diagnostic manual, right, for mental health. And some of these people who are in these organizations, who are highly influential in these organizations, who sit on the board of these organizations, Genevieve Gluck, for example, has exposed that WPATH has, I guess leaders have membership with organizations called things like the Eunuch Archives, which is a hardcore fetish group. They meet up, I think, once. They have like a yearly conference in Japan. And we know that Japan is a huge magnet for like sort of like lolicon and, the P for some reason. And so people who have memberships on the Eunuch Archives that talks about, it has this huge art. I have a video on it. I'll post a link on that too. If you go on my YouTube channel, search, the Eunuch Archives, I did a whole expose on that. So it's like we have these men who are obviously fetishists, who also are people like have MDs, right? They're doctors, they're academics, they're PhDs. Okay. So then they're also created WPATH. Think of it. Okay. For example, the 8th edition of the DSM 8 in the US was edited to now include eunuch as a gender identity. What's a eunuch? It is somebody who has had their penis and testicles removed, right? So they just have nothing. It's like, nullo is another thing that they call that. And there are some men who, again, and you can see it, there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these like stories, and they write these like fantasy stories, these nonfictions that they add to the archive, and they're writing about these like fan fiction fantasy stories about being with men who are eunuchs, or having other people make them into eunuchs. But these guys are also doctors, they're also academics, right? So on the one hand, in their free spare time, they're engaging with all of these like fetish organizations, and they're indulging these fetishes. But then their day job is that they're these doctors and academics, and they're therapists, and they are advising things like childhood transition. What do we know? There is a huge market for these sexually degenerative men who are very interested in the idea of the sort of like man woman, right? One of the number one most popular porn searches and porn topics on Pornhub and pretty much any of these porn is what is it like? Transsexuals, right? Trans identifying males. So it's like men who, have gotten breast implants or developed breast tissue from taking estrogen, but still have their penis. That is like far and away more popular than just typical heterosexual pornography. Okay. So if you have very powerful men who have a lot of influence over our medical industry, over the standards of care that we're making, that trickle down to everything else, that it'll impact how your local pediatrician does things. It infiltrates, the American College of Obstetrician Gynecologists have said that they get their trans healthcare guidelines from WPATH and from the DSM. And you have these men who have these like fantasies. They're going to find ways to legitimize it through, whatever, all these channels that they have access and control over. Okay. They're attracted to the idea of like the man woman chimera. I know that that's not technically chimera, but you know what I mean? Like the mix. They're attracted to the idea of the eunuch. So they're going to find ways to legitimize it and create more of what they're attracted to, create more pathways to sort of prey on mentally ill people and make more of what they want. Okay. So I strongly believe that Gen Spect is a controlled opposition to WPATH. And I think that Stella O'Malley is a perfect figurehead for it, because you can put her out front. She claims she was a gender dysphoric kid. She's just trying to help other kids. And her big thing is, and I think that it's like the bipolar party system, right? It's one of the best ways to make a population of people feel like, one of the best ways to make like a population of people feel like their needs are being represented, and so that they don't revolt or whatever, is you have two parties. And actually it needs to be two, not more of them, right? So it's Democrats and Republicans. That way they get to pick which team that they want to align with, and they can pretend like, oh, this is the right one and we're fighting, these guys are the bad guys. But again, when you join, nobody is perfectly aligned with either all Republicans or all Democrats, or very few are, right? You end up having to accept other less palatable takes just because you'll latch on to a few of your core beliefs. And as long as they represent those few core beliefs, it's fine. And you get all of the different takes represented in those two groups. So it's like, I believe that the strategy is, right, the gender industry, it's like, well, we'll just create two camps. We'll create WPATH, which takes the more extremist leftist approach of just, a laissez-faire, anybody can access medicalization, anybody can, whatever, queer theory, 50 million genders, all the sort of stuff that people like Blair White and Buck Angel, Brad Palumbo, Ariel Scarcella all mock and dunk on YouTube. And then it's kind of like, huh? Because that's kind of not far off from what you guys are doing. And then we can sit here and pretend that like the conservative take is being like, well, there are some adults who truly have persistent gender dysphoria, and we just need to, get a handle on how they access those things, but we don't want any children to do it. And it's like, as long as you have these two camps that are like, you can pretend like, oh, we're really fighting the good fight, then it's like people feel complacent, right? Because like some will have some wins and some will have another, but it's going to keep the gender industry alive. Why does Gen Spect need to replace WPATH? Why do we need a gender lobby? Why do we need a trans lobby? We never had one for hundreds of thousands of years of human civilization. Why do we need one now? And again, I think where I got mad at Kelly J. Keane, and I know this is probably why so many people unfollowed me, but I'm sorry. Again, I understand, like, she wants to go like the political route. And it's like, I think that she was comfortable ranting about it on her own platform, but then it's like she decided to go on Benjamin Boyce's platform, and it was like she just sandwiched all of her arguments with all this praise of Stella, and I hope that you're successful with WPATH, or we're taking down WPATH and replacing them. And it's like, whoa, why? And I just think she needs to be careful, because she is so influential, right? She's so influential in this movement, and her voice is so important in this movement and so well regarded that it's like, it's in a way, it felt like a very controlled setting where it's like, okay, we could have this, this woman that we all look up to and we feel like, really represents our voices, and who's already expressed a lot of dismay with the Gen Spect stuff, to go and confront Stella O'Malley, but she really only confronted like these very specific issues. It was like posting the photo of the AGP and then her like unsavory comments on the Let's Talk Trans Kids or whatever documentary that she did in 2018 with Debbie Hayton. And then afterwards, it's like, okay, you know, but just now that we've like addressed those things, you know, I hope that you continue and keep fighting the good fight. Now we can kind of like all move forward. And to me, it felt like just like closing the door on further analysis of Gen Spect. And so that if anybody keeps talking about it, it's like, oh, they already talked about it. It's already been hashed through. Why are you so obsessed? Why do you want to keep the infighting? Bro, it's not infighting if it's a fucking wolf in sheep's clothing. That's not infighting, okay? If the gender industry found a way to sort of augment itself and cloak itself and take and study the language of gender criticals well enough that they could take on that language and then become like, you know, integrate themselves unsuspectingly. Because if there's anything that I've learned from all of this dust up is we have a lot of very moderate gender criticals. And when I say moderate, I still mean radical, because just because you guys went way out to the left doesn't mean that you know, by us refusing to meet you halfway means that we're these real hardcore hardliners. No, like 20 years ago, none of this, you don't get to stretch everything real far out. And because we won't agree to go meet you halfway, you're saying that we're dogmatic and we're super hard line and all stuff. No. You guys stretched it out. That's not normal. We don't have to acquiesce and play along. Right. And it's like, I just don't think that Posey Parker was the right person to confront all that stuff, because I think that they knew it was going to be like a softball, because again, I just think she has too many relationships tied up with these people, you know. And it's like, again, somebody said like, you know, Karen and I don't, you know what I mean? I'm just like a mom somewhere in Pennsylvania who started a YouTube channel and then was like, oh, I guess I got to do some like, you know, boots on the ground work too. And you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not beholden to the same thing. I'm not trying to start a political party. So anyway, and it's kind of like, you know, just don't keep looking. We've already now hashed this out. No, there's so much more there. So the James Cantor, and again, it's like, it's so, because it's so complicated. It's like I almost need to, you know, like the meme with the whole like background that has like all the pictures and the like lines pointed everywhere. Because there's so many moving parts to this, right? And again, it's like they've been so successful and did such a good job at sort of acclimating themselves to appear that they're gender critical, you know, and so that they can continue to operate and create this sort of true trans backdoor. And I'll say it again, say it a million times, and I'm going to find the clip so that I can back up what I'm saying, because I will back up anything that I say. Sasha Ayat, I watched with Yvette VF555 and she came over to hang out one weekend. We watched Affirmation Nation, which I think had Joey Bright in it. And I think it was like a Gen Spect production. In the last 2/3, it was great, right? I was like, this is great. I liked the whole thing. I agreed with the message. In the last 2/3 of it, Sasha Ayat is sitting on a couch and she says, and this might not be verbatim, but it's damn close. She said, you know, my problem is that 100 children are hurt by trans medicalization for every one child that is helped by trans medicalization. So Sasha Ayad believes that 1% of kids needs to be sterilized, needs to be medicalized. Now, when you make comments like that, when you leave a back door open like that, every single person of a so-called trans kid, every single parent, and all these trans Munchausen by proxy parents, these trans housing by proxy parents who are so obsessively latched onto the idea that their child is truly trans, to the point that they'll actually sacrifice their child on the altar of trans medicalization, have that child, you know, medicalized, shorten their expected lifespan, do horrific things to that child. I mean, there's got to be something really sick to override all of your parental instincts to actually allow something like that to happen to your child. When those parents hear her say that, they're going to be like, oh, well, my child's at 1%. not my child, every single man who is so latched on to this degenerate idea that he's a woman is going to hear that and say, well, I was, oh yeah, that was me. It's like Buck Angel, who was like, yeah, everybody is wrong and full of shit, but I truly was trans. And you got to understand, I wish I could do something about it. I just can't. You leave that one caveat, it undoes everything. And to me, that's the whole thing. That's how it's like the life raft of the gender industry. It's like, we're going to sit here and one thing, and I've said this before, one thing that they do and they do very, very well is utilizing the language of these other civil rights movements. They took the language of the feminist movements. They took the language of the homosexual civil rights movements, and they were able to, use that and sort of like acclimate to that, so that it sounded like that they were a part of those movements, that, oh, this is really a feminist issue, allowing men to, become women. It's a feminist issue. Oh, we have to support, the full spectrum of LGBT rights. It doesn't just stop at the LGB. Apparently there's a T and a Q. There's more that we didn't know, and it's like, oh, but it's rare. And it's like, they bank on that. And it's like, so we think that that's not possible in the gender critical movement. You guys really think? I'm sorry, but it's like a lot of us have all had to admit that at one point we bought into this. So you think that you're just so honed that you'll never get God again. No. So anybody thinks that, like, well, I don't know what you guys think I have to gain by just like creating problems for no reason. I'm losing support by taking this position. Okay. Going against Kelly J. Keane is not a winning strategy. Going against Stella O'Malley is still not a winning strategy, even though more people support that. Again, Kelly J. Keane, she is on our side. Please don't let me get that fucked up. I think she took a very weak position with Stella O'Malley. And a lot of people said, oh, that was a strategy. She was just trying to let Stella talk. No, I disagree. I think that, like, if these sort of casual observers watched it, they're like, oh, see, look, they're making up in the end. They both had to, take a hard stance on certain things. And I'm sorry, but the only person who really threw shots was Stella throwing shots at KJK, bringing up the, like, white nationalist thing and then the neo-Nazis seek healing her. It's like, first of all, those men showing up is absolutely like, that was a plan. I mean, they're showing up, that's probably like leftists hiring people to show up to, to be like, oh, see, look, she's pro-Nazi. And also they're a little, like, one of their pet troons, Corinna Cohn, likened when I posted the little clip of Stella O'Malley saying this, like, disgusting thing to the trans widow of David Hayton, aka Debbie Hayton, and he was like, he likened that to like some Nazi thing. I was like, oh, well, hey, isn't that nice? Isn't that typical? Isn't that predictable? Right? That you again, you would point in the face of, a woman who's standing for women, and again, calling us Nazis. Isn't that? And the fact that Stella took that, again, calling her, basically implying that, oh, see, you're Nazis. And the way she said it too, she's like, I have, just know, Gen Spect has never criticized you, Kelly J. Okay. So does that mean, oh, it's kind of like, Kelly, you better watch it, because we've never gone after you. You shouldn't go after us. Bro, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? If you're doing something wrong, you should be called out. And I'm not saying that Kelly J. Keane didn't push back a little bit, but to me, it made it seem like at the end, it's like, okay, well, this is all, over with. Let's just wrap it up and move on to the next thing. And it's like, no, we still need, to me, this is the Gen Spect is the Trojan horse, right? And again, Gen Spect means it encompasses so many different things, right? There's so many people involved with it, either loosely or deeply. And Stella O'Malley is like the perfect figurehead for it, because she's like not all that bright, but she seems easy to manipulate. And man, is she dishonest. I've seen her lie almost compulsively. I mean, the woman is just unable to take ownership of anything or really stand on anything. Doesn't that concern us? She's telling us that 5 years ago. So this is the head of Gen Spect, the founder of Gen Spect. This is somebody who is talking to schools about how schools should formulate their curriculum regarding children and all that sort of stuff. And she's literally saying that she didn't know 5 years ago that autogynephilia existed. But this is who we want taking, but now she wants to take over the entire trans lobby and be the sort of like highest authority of, advising on these issues. What? She doesn't sound, no, that sounds really inappropriate. And then she was saying, like, again, they like recommended Phil Illy's book, and then like her excuse for doing that, she's like, well, there's just not a lot of resources out there about autogynephiles. Yeah, so let's get a book written by an autogynephile that's very much like him trying to control the narrative. One thing that we should be very wary about is these men who want to, these men with a lot of power who want to go through and create spaces for their own sexual degeneracy. I mean, it's all biased. All right, so anyway, here we go. Yeah, so I think Stella O'Malley takes whatever position her bosses tell her to take. She's all, exactly. No, that's exactly it. And that's why she's dangerous. That's why she's dangerous. That's why this whole thing is dangerous. They're getting a lot of money. Where is it coming from and why? And what are they doing with it? So hold on. And they're developing resources for schools. So let's go on the James Cantor. So I can't deal with the whole Gen Spect thing, but we can deal with pieces of it. So let's look at James Cantor. And I know it's like, that was like a huge preamble, but there's just so much to talk about, which is why I need you guys to go look at Karen Davis's work so that you can get caught up. All right, so let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Dr. Cantor. Okay, wait, hold on. Sorry. Okay, so, all right, so here we go. Oops. Dr. Cantor was a part of Prostasia. Anybody who doesn't know who Prostasia is, they're the ones who came up with the minor attracted persons. Again, it's another one of these organizations that claims to be about being for the kids. Prostasia is an organization that claims that its main mission, its highest mission, is about protecting children from pedophiles. Yet, in practice, the main thing it seems that they're concerned with is destigmatizing people, pedophile. I mean, God, it's like, am I going to get my video taken down if I say that word? It's like, we shouldn't change that word. That word should stay. It should keep all of the stigma that it has. Right. So, all right. So it says Dr. James Cantor. So Prostasia was, Dr. Alan Walker is a woman who claims to be non-binary, and she talks about destigmatizing pedophilia, and she was, released from her teaching position and then promptly picked up by Johns Hopkins. So, all these people get just passed around within academia. They're all protected, and it's funny. It's like, we can sit here and we dump all of these resources into studying men's bizarre, sexual paraphilias and things that have traumatized and victimized women and children across time, culture. But it's so important that we continue to figure out why. Yet we have no resources for helping women who have diastasis recti after childbirth, right? We have no resources for helping women, juggle careers and children, right? We have no resources for women regaining, sexual functioning after either a sexually traumatic event or pelvic radiation therapy, cancer survivors. Oh, there's no, time or effort for that. can't help women, with figuring out endometriosis or curing endometriosis, so many things. But no, we dump all this time, effort, and resources at how can we, allow these men to reintegrate back into society safely? How about we just don't? How about we just don't? How about we just say, you know what? Sorry, no. I support the whole little, like, pedophile, like, islands and stuff like that, and those little, like, thing where they all live together away from everybody else. That's fine. How about we just don't need to? How about we just need to identify it and how to keep people away from them? How about those are like the two main goals? And it's like, it's so much of it. Again, it's like there's so much of this like fake scientific integrity, because it's like they have a goal that they want to, they want to figure out, normalize it. He's decided that it's something that's immutable. He says it's something with the wiring of the brain, and they're probably born that way and they can't change it. And so again, that lays the groundwork for saying, well, they can't change it. It's a lot like a sexuality. If they can't change it, they can't help it. So they can't really be held accountable, right? They kind of have to be accommodated in some way. And it's like, it's all like phrenology. First of all, what pisses me off is this guy is sort of like some like neuroscientist or whatever the hell he is. And it's like, sir, what you don't understand that how elastic our brains are. Do you know how many people have been in comas and who have had serious brain injuries have been able to recover? Our brains are so elastic. You're telling me that you're able to identify some neural connections in the brains of pedophiles. And it's like, no, I think that we don't know enough about the brain to conclusively say pretty much anything of what you're saying. And it's a lot like addiction. If heroin addicts can I think it's absurd to say that can't be true for men, whatever. No, again, and Steph, everybody, please, it's not about, this is not about telling anybody to withdraw support from KJK. We need her. Okay. I think she made a bad move. That's it. That's literally it. She's good. She's fucking what we need right now. She is like, I believe that she's firmly on our side. I think that some of these people, it's like when everybody gets too in bed with each other politically, it gets a little bit tricky to like really be able to, and that's why I think this whole move to infiltrate gender critical spaces is so successful, and should be our top priority to analyze, because it gets so difficult to weed out. Everybody gets so tangled in with each other, and it's hard to differentiate who's who. And some people are taking, they've done some good work and they've had some good takes, so then we're just going to turn a blind eye to this. Oh, well, they've done really good work with this person. We know this person's really legit. Again, this is not, people are really mad that I've criticized KJK's decision and the way that she handled that, but she's not the problem. Okay. At all. I need to get water. Give me 1 second, guys. All right. So hold on. And then let me, God, here, hold on for 1 second, guys. I got to pull up. There's just so much to pull up. Here, where are we? All right. Why am I not able to? Wait, let me see. All right. I need to pull up some of these. Okay. Hold on. All right, here we go. Let's see what this is. Okay. All right. So this was, and again, he backpedals on this and lies about this. And I want to pull up where he lies about it. Hold on. Let's see. Remember 1 second. The guys just don't like, they're just liars. They're not honest about. This is a really important tweet though. Okay. So James Cantor, and again, James Cantor is somebody who has done a lot of work with Stella O'Malley and Gen Spect, who's been platformed by them, who's been referenced by Stella, who I think has a lot more to do with Gen Spect than is, immediately obvious. But okay, so Virtuous Pedophiles, which is an account, it's an organization that I think Cantor and Ray Blanchard, I guess Michael Bailey have been a part of. Maybe Karen can correct me, but so Virtuous Pedophiles, again, verpeds. It's the idea that these guys can like acknowledge what they are and try to be better and whatever. And it says, to LGBTQs, I have no desire to link P with your cause and understand why you don't like the idea. It doesn't help you with your legitimate goals, but there are key parallels in the science, and there's no way to avoid them if you want to explain pedophilia, Ethan. So then Dr. James Cantor, again, this is one of the people who's linked with Genspect and Stella O'Malley, says, speaking as a gay man, I believe we should include the P. To do otherwise is to betray the principles that gives us our rights. And then somebody says, I have mixed feelings here. I'm for destigmatizing pedophilia for the sake of clarity that it is the attraction, not the act of child molestation. But at the same time, we do not strive for the acceptance of a lifestyle. So I fear it may obfuscate our goal. Why is it that like we put so much value on men, like men's sexuality and sexual desires, and this whole idea, they can't help it, they can't control it and stuff like that? And it's like, it's kind of like, all right, this is maybe a crude comparison, but it's like, I've typically dated Black men. Okay. Does that mean that like, that's like my sexuality and I just can't help it? It's like, it's all so like, again, it's like what everyone, Benjamin Boyce, who's saying they're flirting with Phil Illey. And it's like, it's like the worst thing we can do is tell a man that, he needs to like get himself together. And it's like, why is it that men's fashion choices are so important? Men's sort of like ability to live out their sexual desires is always something that like us as society that we always have to somehow accommodate and be there for. Never mind that mothers are struggling with most basic needs and basic things. Never mind the fact that my cancer center has an entire state-of-the-art wing. If this doesn't like most appropriately illustrate the problem, I don't know what else does. Fox Chase Cancer Center in Philadelphia, Northeast Philadelphia, has an entire wing dedicated to restoring the sexual function of men after undergoing cancer treatment. There is no corresponding wing for women. When I had to get pelvic radiation, I did a lot of research on the potential side effects with sexual dysfunction, issues that I would have. I was reading about how pelvic radiation has caused, the walls of women's vaginas to become very fragile, vaginal stenosis, the need for dilating, so many different things that you could be having spasms, that women might never be able to achieve orgasm again, that apparently some pelvic physical therapy can help. Of course, it's not covered. Of course, it's not something that they really focus on. They gave me a little plastic dildo. I was like, yeah, you might have to dilate, which that is a case where, like actual women, again, because radiation does so much cellular damage. But men, you could be 65 years. I was 33 years old, facing the possibility of never being able to orgasm again, never being able to have sex with person that I love, right? Comfortably or whatever. But like these 65-year-old men who, had to undergo whatever, they're getting state-of-the-art treatment and it's all covered, and making sure that these men can still get hard, because God forbid, right? God forbid. And it's just like, like if that does not let us know, and it's like all these like resources that we're putting on so that men can. All right, so let's see, hold on. So then, all right, so he said that, right? And then he goes and basically lies about having said that. This is what they seem to do. This 1 second. Okay, yeah, here we go. Yeah, and one thing, it's like this Gen Spect crew, it's like, man, they're so good at making themselves into like they sure are victims or victims of cancel mob and victims of outrage mob. It's like anybody like asking them questions or like holding a mirror up to them. It was like when I posted the real quick, I posted the thing with Stella O'Malley. Everybody's like, what? You're bringing up something that's so old. It's like, first of all, no, it was in 2018. It's not so old. And it's like, this sort of behavior has continued and it's all relevant. So why would we not talk about it? Why are they so exempt from being held accountable to it's literally anything? Like, I don't get it. Hold on, let me see. Here we go. Hold on. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, let's see. Where is it? Look at Fluff. He's so good. That's my Fluff. Setting up the tree. He just like listens to me rant all the time about everything. Like, here's an example. I want to quick stick to what I've like. Oh, Stella finally blocked me. Well, like, speaking of which, Stella, how's like the lawsuit going? He got like, I haven't seen anything in the mail. Stella claims she was going to sue me for defamation. Why? Because I said that you guys are a true trans organization. Well, literally all I have to do is show the clip of Sasha Ayad saying that 1% of children are helped by childhood medicalization and case closed. Okay. That's true trans. That's saying some people are trans. Some people are, truly need these things. Right. Oh, here we go. Hold on. So I posted this. Okay, it's just for some background. I guess in 2018, Stella O'Malley was part of some like documentary, and with her new, bestie David Hayton, some, some pervert AGP guy. She's sitting with the family, the wife of this man who decided that living out his, sexual perversions full time was more important than honoring his duties as a father and as a husband to his family. It was so important that he could full time act out sexually. That it didn't matter how it harmed his family, how embarrassing it was. It wasn't enough to just do it privately. He had to do it publicly. Not only did he have to do it publicly, but then he had to memorialize it on television, right? And make it his whole life so that the whole world now will always and forevermore know that what this family went through. So Stella, being the wonderful therapist that she is, asked this heinous question of a trans widow. What a disgusting, vile, vulgar thing to say to this woman who is trying to who allowed you into her home, is trying to walk you through the pain and the devastation. And in front of her children, you have the audacity with a little smirk and a giggle saying, well, does that mean you're like a lesbian now? Or what? A heterosexual mother whose husband of several decades, I think, decides that he's going to full-time live out a sexual degeneracy fetish where autogynephilic fetish. Did you really ask this woman if that means she's really now a lesbian? Talking about like the heartbreak that she went through. How dare you? And then of course she reposted, and Stella O'Malley like reposted it, and like boo-hooing about how everybody being so mean to her on Twitter. Then like a bunch of like, I guess, Gen Spect and Stella O'Malley supporters are like, what's wrong with that question? It was a legitimate question. She wanted to know. Stop it. How dare you? Enough. How dare you? And I was like, oh, well, she was doing good. Oh. And then Debbie Hayton jumped onto the scene to defend his old pal, Stella. Hold on. It's like, bro, like, fucking cut me a break. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah, and the way she said no was heartbreaking. Just one more time. Just for everybody. The way, and it's funny because it's like, most of the times when we're nervous, people are nervous, they'll kind of like mirror what somebody else's emotions, even if we're offended. The fact that this trans widow didn't even crack a smile, didn't even wave, the way she just stared through and just said no. It's just kind of like, there's no sound. Oh, wait, what happened to the sound? Oh, can you hear me now? Shit, I'm sorry. Where's the no sound? Hold on. Hold on, I'll try it again. What happened to the sound? Okay, wait, let me see. Figure eight on me. Hold on. God. Oh, shit. Can you guys hear me? Hold on. Can you guys hear it now when I play it or no? Still no? Oh, fuck. Is it still no? Sorry, guys. Oh, now you can hear it? You can hear it now? I don't know why not before. No, you can't hear it? When I play it? Fuck. Why? When I play the clip. Here, I'm gonna play it real quick. Tell me if you can hear it. I am playing it. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? You still can't hear? Fuck. Oh, sorry. I don't know why. That's so weird and annoying. Hold on. Um, yeah. That's annoying. Does that?
Debbie questioning what she was doing. Well, yeah, so did I. I said, well, do you need to do this? Do you have to do this? Can't you wait a few years? Can't you wait till the children have left home? Do you really need to do this? Do you really need to do this? Would it be better if you moved out the house for a few months and kind of came back, or moved out full time, or? That's my question. Who are we? Because I'm not sure now. Again, forgive me if I'm Perhaps. But are you a lesbian couple now, or are you? I don't genuinely know. No.
I don't genuinely know. Are you a lesbian couple now? Because I don't genuinely know. Like, how dare you? How dare you? Like, what a vile. What an absurd. And then, but I can't decide what's worse. Like the people who are like caping for her. Yeah. And then this guy, this creep. First of all, no one was talking to you, sir. Don't jump in on my thread. So, all right. So I said, never forget the utterly vile moment when Stella O'Malley, founder of Gen Spect, asked trans widow of Debbie Hayton David in front of her children if she's now in a lesbian relationship with her husband Hayton, because he decided to permanently live out his fetish with a giggle and a smile. And then this, I'm sorry, this very not smart person says, why is this a bad question? That's what a journalist does. She's trying to clarify what the relationship is for viewers, as if anyone is watching this. Clearly, that needs to be explained. Why is their offense taken to this question? I don't see Delacroix. And these are people who like claim to be like gender criticals. No, first of all, she's not a journalist. But why would we even engage with that idiotic delusion anyway? Why? Because this man is become so emboldened by the trans movement that he now actually feels comfortable coming out full time as a sexual degenerate. And then, of course, here we go. Yeah, this creep. It was a very good question for a program with a mass audience. Does someone's sexual orientation change when the person transitions? No. First of all, she says, I genuinely don't know. And she like giggled. So stop trying to clean it up and make it sound something that it didn't. Oh, she was trying to clarify for people. No. She said, I genuinely don't know, and was like snickering. And she also, like, she goes back and forth, and she also says she didn't know much about anything back then. And how about just saying, like, she could have said something like, and to clarify, she didn't have to say anything about that. How dare you? That's not necessary. And she could have been like, and then there's some people who are trying to say that now that constitutes a lesbian relationship, which obviously is not the case. It's still a heterosexual relationship. This guy is just so beyond disrespectful of his own family that he's prioritizing his own sexual needs and wants over being a decent human being. Right? Yeah, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And he says, no, it doesn't. But a good journalist asks the question so that the audience hears the answer and does not need to guess. Who would need to guess? What are you talking about? Ew. Ew. Oh, yeah, Karen asked him if he wants. Oh, I would love to see that. Karen, I would love to see that. I would love to see him go on your thing. And then, yeah. Oh. Yeah, Irish Lesbians Uniting says a good journalist knows you're a man, would never ask your wife if she's now a lesbian because you're a man. That's a whole other, we got to go down that rabbit hole. But back to the Cantor stuff. Hold on for a second. So, all right. So, hold on, let's get Cantor up from. Okay, here we go. So, just to be sure, when have they done work together? Oh, they've done work together. Also, I feel like Sasha Ayad should not be spared. She kind of like gets to like hang out in the background and like hide behind Stella, but she's just as unpalatable, I should say. Unpalatable. Okay. So, all right. So here, this isn't, okay. I'm going to show you this important part. Tell me if you guys can hear this.
As pedophilic, so we can say, so that we can see that the offended, the minority, of one so far underground that we have no idea what the denominator is.
When you say positive.
Yep.
Can you hear that? Can you guys let me know? Can you hear him? You can hear him, Helena? I'm just going to wait for, you guys can tell me if you guys can hear him speaking in this 60-minute videos. Okay, good. All right, so this is James Cantor, and this is him talking about how most pedophiles. And it's like, how could you say that? Most pedophiles are good guys who don't want to offend. Well, based on what, sir? Based on what? What are you talking about? So his take is that there's nothing that they can do about it, something that they're born with, and most of them want to live a good life. No, that's you trying to clean up the image so that people let their guard down. So like, oh, most, yeah, he might, have engaged in. Another thing that Prostasia really wants is these sex therapy dolls, these very lifelike, basically dolls of young children so that these men can abuse. I did a whole video. That was like one of my third or fourth videos. And we know that that's not an effective therapy tool. All that does is reestablish the neural connections that make men want to seek this out. And eventually the doll won't be enough. I did a whole video on that. That's not a solution. That's not what they really want. They don't want the doll, okay? They want the person. And the more that you create the association between an orgasm and having sex with something that looks like a child, this is why child sexual abuse images are so severe. Even if, the person didn't take it themselves, this is why they punish it so harshly, okay? It doesn't, a lot of these dolls are develop, like sometimes like these people can send in a picture of a child that they are attracted to, that they know from real life, and send it in, and the doll maker will make a doll that looks exactly like that child. You think that that's normal or acceptable? It's absolutely not. This right here, this is a man, Dr. James Cantor. He's an academic. He's a sexologist, as if we need more sexologists, teaching us about male degeneracy. That's like the last thing that we need. But yeah, let's hear from Dr. Cantor and all of the wasted resources that we all funnel into to learn more about, how can we help men be total degenerates and make it seem like it's this legitimate, high class thing. I guess fucking enough. Hold on.
Those are the majority type, or at least we have every reason to believe. So even though those are the majority type, or at least we have bed, glass of wine, watches the news and goes to bed, that never hits victimization of the child.
Here, we'll just start from the beginning.
Is there such thing as a non-harmful pedophile?
Oh, absolutely. The virtuous pedophiles, practically by definition, are non-harmful. The only pedophiles that we really ever hear about are the ones who cause harm. That's what brings them to attention. It's the report, it's the disclosure of the crime, it's the victimization of the child. Those are the ones that hit the news. But pedophile wakes up, goes to work, comes home, has a glass of wine, watches the news and goes to bed. That never hits the news. So even though those are the majority type, or at least we have every reason to believe that those are the great majority type, they're certainly not going to come out as pedophilic. So we can say, so that we can see that the offending ones are actually the minority. We've driven the positive ones so far underground that we have no idea what the denominator is.
When you say positive pedophile, well, I struggle with that.
Sure. It's still part of the association between pedophile and child molester. And I can't hold anybody at blame for saying that. The only time we ever hear about pedophilia is in the context of child molestation.
And it almost sounds like you're making an excuse for them, being sympathetic.
Well, I wouldn't make an excuse for a child molester. I have no reason to apologize for anybody who's caused anybody harm. But there's nothing about a pedophile who has never touched anybody, never watched child porn, has a sexual interest pattern he didn't ask for and can't get rid of. What did he do wrong? What am I blaming him for?
I mean,
he can't get rid of. I'm sorry. No, if people can get over heroin addiction and it's all akin to phrenology. And it's like, so he cites, all right, so let's go in more, okay? Because it's so frustrating. And this is what the problem is with all of these men in these positions of power. It's like they just get to do whatever they want, create the narrative, whatever they want. A lot of these studies are not replicated. They're not, thoroughly, it's such like a niche area. They love like creating these studies that are super niche and hard to replicate. So then they can be like, oh, well, look, we studied this and these were our results. And it's like, no, he knows what he wants the results to be, and of course they're going to end up doing, work that only affirms that. So then, okay. So again, remember this guy said, hold on. So this guy said that he believes that the P belongs with the LGBTQ. Okay. That's what he believes. And then let's see. Then he kind of lies. Let's find it. Hold on. I'm sorry, guys. Trying to find it. Okay, here we go. Hold on, sorry. Let's see. It is the other part is half truth. Okay. Yeah, here we go. All right. So then it says, all right, he says, so Grays Against Groomers, which I think it's an account that it's like grandparents against these groomers. So Grays. Okay, so Grays Against Groomers says at James Cantor, PhD, specifically what quote principles will be quote betrayed by not adding P for pedophile to the current alphabet soup of pretend identities. Again, this is in response to Dr. James Cantor, PhD, who said, speaking as a gay man, I believe we should include the P. To do so otherwise is to betray the principles that give us our rights. And that James Cantor says that his justification is that that people are responsible for their behaviors, not the sexual interests they're born with. Pedophilia, an innate interest pattern associated with brain structure. Again, there's no proof of that. There's no proof of that. And when somebody asked for proof, he gave all of these, a long list of studies that he cited. The authors are like him and Blanchard, that nobody's replicated. There's such a history. People don't even understand how much science is constantly being debunked and thrown out and all this stuff. These are all just hypotheses, and they're hypotheses that have a motivation. Right? This is what they're motivated for. They've also called to not only destigmatize pedophilia, change the name and do minor attracted person. They also call for lowering the age of consent to like 13. It's just chipping away at safeguarding. Right? Because again, male sexuality, it needs to be everybody's problem. Everybody's responsible to sit here and help these men get what they need sexually. Right? It's like as if we're not terrorized enough by men and whatever it is that their penis is interested in. No, we've all got to, bend over backwards to make sure that we can accommodate this stuff. Again, this is one of Stella O'Malley and Sasha Ayad does not escape. Sasha, I'll do a whole specific thing on her because she doesn't get to escape criticism either. I feel like a lot of it is directed at Stella. Sasha's a problem too. An innate interest pattern associated with brain structure. It's such bullshit. It's like akin to phrenology, right? It's like them saying that there's like a trans brain. They see these little the brain is so complex, and that's why we've never been able to establish. That's why if anybody with what's his name, Jeffrey Dahmer. The reason why they chose not to go through his brain, they had done the same. They had gone through a lot of these psychopath killers' brains and found there's just no structural way to really identify this stuff. And if any of this was legit, we'd be able to brain scan people and immediately identify if they're a pedophile. And also the fact is, it's like you assume that the brain is not completely elastic, as if it's just this static thing and there's no way to, there's just nothing anybody can do. You just can't do anything about it. It's not the same as a sexuality. Sexuality is about, it's about sex. It's about being attracted to one sex over the other. There's only two of them, or both. That's literally it. Okay. Again, it's like, because I predominantly date black men, do I have a black men sexual, whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, no, that's just who I, whatever fucking I'm going for. I know people are going to probably give me shit for that. Whatever. All right, hold on. Okie dokie. Let's see. All right. So let's see. Where's the other image? Okay, again. About biology. What a liar. What a liar. Again, this is all sets a thing for. So, okay. Hold on. Oops. Hold on. Sorry. Where is it? Image. Okay. Is this the other one? Okay. So he says, James Cantor. This is back in April of 2023. This is this year. This is recent. He says that people are responsible for their behaviors, not the sexual interests they're born with. Oh yeah, no, we already did this. I'm born. Shut up. Yeah, it's like so frustrating. And then, you know, people getting mad at like me and Karen for what, saying that we should like, you know, to take a look at this a little like more deeply, especially if these people are letting us know that they're trying to become the new trans lobby. Why the fuck would we not? Isn't that what we're here for? What else am I here for? What else am I doing? What am I just supposed to be, a little monkey that like picks out whatever stories that everybody is circulating? It's like, if you go, it's so bizarre actually to me. If you go through like the whole media circuit of YouTube, it's like they all recycle the same exact stories and the same exact takes amongst themselves, you know? And it's like, you know, I see it with like every genre. I see it with like the Black conservatives. I see it with the conservatives in general. I see it with the so-called like gender criticals. I see it with the true trans. It's like they'll all take the same clip and go and make the same boring, you know, takes. And it's like, yeah, it's all like entertaining. And it's like, you could literally, you watch one of these channels, you watched them all, you know? And I'm like, and it's just kind of like, are you guys all getting the same email where it's like, okay, here's today's news cycle that we need you to cover? Like, I'm cool, you know? And it's like, I have such a small like channel. Like, why wouldn't I? Who cares? You know, it's like, why wouldn't we? And if they hold up to scrutiny, then they'll hold up to scrutiny. You know, and I gotta side eye a lot of you who are like so vehemently against us looking at them and scrutinizing them. It's like, what are you trying to hide? And that's the thing. This is why I really believe this is like the gender industry trying to, they know that this is how they are going to keep themselves alive. And they just want us all to, you know, go along with it and just, you know, oh yeah, you're right. Oh, you're the good guys. You're on our side. We're fight. It's infighting. If we criticize you, you're not on our side. You're not one of us. Yeah, you know, no, you're you know, co-opting our language, sure, but you're not one of us. Get out of my face. Like, hold on. Fuck. Hold on for a second. Okay, here we go. All right, he says, I hate that I can't just like. The other part is a half truth. The thread about how do we know what it means to be in the LGBTQ plus. To me, it's basically biology. Anything else is hypocritical. When my tweet about P is removed from my definition of LGBTQ plus, anyone thinks I'm using their definition instead. And I think this is a trans identifying person, but let's see what they say. It says there is no comparison between a sexual act that is consensual between consenting adults and an act which is with another consenting adult. Personally, I'm not fussed whether it's biological or something else. I'm bisexual and trans and whatever it was somehow learned or whatever, right? And it's like, you know, again, it's like at the end of the day, God, it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. It's like, it's like, okay, so if somebody is a psychopath, right, and they have the, insatiable urge to murder somebody, should we just, they keep killing people, they keep attacking people, they keep doing these highly antisocial things, but they can't really help it because, it's just how their brain is wired. No, these men can help it. And this is why I pushed back so hard on Exelanzic when she was basically co-signing the idea that these men can't help their sexual fetishes and deviancies. Stop it. These are adult men. Of course they can. Like Phil Illy just has to wear this dress. He just has to go out and stop it. The only reason that they're all doing it now is because we've created a culture where no one's allowed to say anything, and it was artificially created. It was because they had to tap things like big tech and all these other ways to mandate that no one's allowed to say anything. Otherwise, people lose their jobs, lose their livelihood, lose their social standing. So it's like, no. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired. I just had like a long week, so I'm probably not as sharp as I should be. But it's not, but like Lottie, that's the problem. So Lottie says, and I hear you, Lottie says, leave our kids alone. That's it. No, though. That's the problem. They've latched on to that idea. It's like, oh, as long as we just don't advocate for kids. But it does hurt. All of it hurts our kids, right? Allowing adults to just engage in this stuff and normalize it in society, and we change, that all of it affects all of us. It's not just like, okay, if you don't specifically target our children for transmedicalization and whatever, then go do what you want. No. Okay, you guys, it's like, oh God, it's like a bunch of just fetishists. And the idea, again, it's a lot of men with a lot of power and money. They eventually get bored and they want to try the next thing. And it's like, they know, oh, well, we have all this influence over these, just the way society is organized and these huge institutions. We can just carve out a space where it becomes legitimate and for us to do these things and stuff like that. And it becomes insidious. And then it's like, so people like me or Karen Davis or Kelly J. Keane are touted as hardliner Nazis if we're saying, no, we're not going to budge. No, you won't get to stretch all the way out into left field and then yell at us because we didn't come and meet you halfway. We don't have to keep buying into this stuff. And Lottie, I don't mean that. Like, I hear what you're saying, but it's like, I think that we need to see that them doing the whole, we stand against childhood transition is how everybody's been like, oh, well, they're doing good stuff. Well, they're doing good stuff. No, they're doing all that so that, adults can continue to get away and do what they want. Will be allowed to. And it was like that Corinna Cone weirdo from Heterodorks, who tried to come at my neck. And it's like, again, there is no such thing as a gender critical trans person. It doesn't exist. And this guy is trying to be like, oh, I go to the Senate and I talk to the Senate. And I was like, sir, why the fuck would I want some man who lives out his fetish daily to go talk to the Senate? You're the last person that anyone needs to hear from. Nobody should be listening to you. You're not on our side. You're not gender critical. You're only saying, oh, I'll sacrifice the child transition so that you'll let me keep, getting a hold of my hormones. And the kids can just, low key do it on the side. No, nobody needs to hear from you. Creep. Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's like, I appreciate that stuff. And it's like, again, it's not, I want to make it clear. I have no picks. Okay. Like Exelanzic's my friend. Exelanzic's the reason I have a channel. Okay. Exelanzic was the first person to recommend my channel. And it went from having like 100 followers to put me on track to having like 1,000. Right. And that was like the first, whatever. It was like, put me on track to having a few hundred. And that kind of got me going from there. But I when I saw something that I needed to criticize and critique and point out, I can't shy away from that because that's what I'm here for. Again, it doesn't mean that even when she had hit me up, it was like, hey, I know that we're like on opposite sides of this whole Gen Spect thing. Is it okay if I still come over? I was like, oh, of course. You're still my friend. Like, you know what I mean? You haven't done anything that's so, that I can't like personally be friends with you, but I can't allow that. I can't allow that like our friendship and stuff to cloud my judgment or make me soften my stance on stuff that I think that I need to take a hard line on. Right. And that's the point. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. It doesn't matter who it is. We have to be willing to be like, hey, this wasn't a great move. And it doesn't mean that, we also got to stop with the black and white thinking, because people like acting as if I'm saying like, oh, we got to like wholly like condemn, I say we need to condemn Gen Spect. Yeah, I'll go there. Of course not Kelly J. Keane. I love her. You know what I mean? And do I think she's perfect? No, but I think she's what we need. And I'm so grateful for her. Ew, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Michael Bailey will need his own thing. Michael Bailey is esteemed colleague. Mr. Bailey has stated that some minors benefit from sex with adults. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it's crazy. Kids are being taught to ignore their feelings and discomfort and danger because of normalization of fetishes and pedophilia. Exactly. No, exactly. And even adults. Oh, well, he's a virtuous pedophile. So, we don't have to immediately get him out and get him away from children. So what's the end goal there? That then, if the guy is a practicing virtuous pedophile, then, we can allow him around children as long as he, so solemnly swears that he'll never act on it. Come on. Stop it. You guys, stop it. We need to tighten up. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. So let's find. All right. So James Cantor. Okay. So, here's Stella Ayad. Sasha Ayad and Stella. I haven't even listened to this, so I don't have like a clip of it, but let's take a look.
Hi, Stella.
Hi, Sasha.
So we are returning to a subject today that we recorded this conversation with Dr. James Cantor in 2022.
And can we also just say, like, I just feel like Stella just seems so childish and petulant, like cannot answer a single question about her organization, threatening to sue people for like pointing things at. Grow up. She just seems like very sheltered and like kind of a little goofy. And then Sasha just seems spineless. Let's go, Sasha.
We covered some unbelievably fascinating topics. He kind of told us about how he became a sex researcher, trying to understand his own background as a gay man. He talked about meeting Dr. Blanchard and being one of the first people to examine the lives and minds of autogynephiles and pedophiles. He talked about how activism has changed. We discussed the way scientists classify things in terms of taxonomy. And we talked about also, a program in Germany that aims to reduce offending by pedophiles. We talked about recidivism rates, and we covered such a broad range of.
See, that's the thing. I feel like these organizations always use like children as their shield. Okay. It's always like, oh, Gen Spect, oh, well, we're studying autogynephilia, so we need to know all of these autogynephiles and work with them and be friends with them and do things with them. But don't worry, it's so that we can learn about it, so we can protect children from childhood transition. We've got to learn about it so we can protect kids. And it's like, that's not necessary. It's not necessary to sit there and, we've got to like work together with men like Phil Illey, who's, I'm sorry, I've heard stories from his ex about him smoking meth and, wanting girls to peg him and stuff. We don't need this guy, teaching us anything about anything. We don't need to legitimize this with like research studies and stuff like that. Let's prioritize how can we really like, help kids identify these creeps and stay away from them. Okay. I'm not interested in figuring out how can we reintegrate sexual predators. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in how can we salvage sexual predators and help them become, great members of society. No. I'm interested in figuring out how can we more quickly identify who they are and keep them away from us, keep them away from children. Okay. Create even stronger safeguards. Okay, I don't think understanding how it came to be is what does that even seek to do? Because you're a big conclusion. I'm sorry, and how irresponsible that you've been studying this. This would require, I think, like 100 years of studying before we could ever even begin to try to conclusively say that these are innate things. You know what? That is such a bold and arrogant assertion for Cantor to be saying that he can assert for sure after doing a couple like studies with his buddies. This is like an immutable sexuality. This is an immutable quality, immutable trait to be sexually attracted to children. You don't know that. You don't know that conclusively. How dare you? But no, you see, you were able to pull that as a conclusion, and you're happy with that, and you're going to run with it because now we can sit there and be like, well, they can't help it. So what are we going to do? How can we help them? Oh, dude. It's all just crazy.
Absolutely fascinating topics. But we decided not to release it during the Pioneers series when it was recorded. And there was a reason why.
Yeah. And the reason was primarily because of me, because I suppose I was very proud of the Pioneer series. It was your idea, Sasha, and it was an amazing series. I felt it was one of the proudest parts of my work in gender was around this Pioneer series. And we were basically...
Work in gender. What's gender? Stella. What's gender? Does anyone know what gender is? I don't know what gender is. Cantor's research is trash. He did one on finger. Oh, I know. I saw that. He did one on like leg length, leg and torso length, and how that somehow correlates to being like inborn pedophile. Yeah, it's all trash. It really is. It's just garbage. It's junk science. It's a bunch of overly privileged, male sexual deviants who have way too access to too many resources and too much institutional support to go, and basically they can get whatever outcome they want. They test it in the right angles. They can get whatever outcome they want. Okay. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, good. Now I can point to these studies that we did. Come on.
Lifting up all sorts of different people's views, people's research, the people who were there decades ago, and just to hear what have they got to say now they're decades in the world, because so many of us are only...
Oh, hey, Carol, look, you're on the side. You see it? I can't point to it. Carol's female only spaces in the truth of Mitch Fest. Definitely subscribe to Carol.
3, 8, 5 years in this world. And at the time, during the Pioneers, when that was going out, Genspect was about 8 or 9 months old, and we were suffering an onslaught of extraordinary attacks. And it wasn't from a lot.
Here we go. Here's the poor Stella, always under attack. My question is, Stella, if you're like such a rightful leader, why is it everybody's always wrong? It was even like Kelly J. Keane said something so poignant in her conversation. She's like, well, if everybody is always misunderstanding and misrepresenting your message, maybe the problem is with your message, right? It's not that everybody's just always wrong and they're always attacking poor Stella. I don't know you. You're some rando from Ireland. What do you talk? I have you didn't fuck my man. Right. So I'm not trying to like ruin your life. It's not like you came and like, did some weird stuff to me and my family. And I have some personal vendetta. You're some fucking rando woman from Ireland who I didn't care about until I started learning about, your terrible influence on a movement that I happen to care a lot about. And I actually think is really important. And I'm not coming in to make a career out of all this transgender fighting and all this shit. I came to just make a little YouTube channel about women's health and midwifery and stuff. And I haven't been able to get off this topic because I realize how huge it is. It's like, so I got no picks here. I got nothing to gain from like, it's not like Karen Davis is cutting me a check, right? She just happens to be really right. And she happened to put me on a trail that you guys created that you don't like anyone following. You guys get so upset when people actually pay attention to what you've been up to and piece all that stuff together and be like, well, hey, wait a minute. What about? You're like, oh, it's an onslaught. It's an onslaught. Stop it. Everybody's always trying to hurt poor Stella. And it's like, but of course, all these creeps like to throw Stella out in front. Because then Stella can just play the victim card and be this meek little whatever, you know what I mean? And oh, we can't criticize Stella. And it's really all these creeps who are in the background who are calling all the shots. She's not that bright. Like, let's keep it a bean. She's not that bright.
Utter people, but it was relentless, and it was a small number of incredibly vocal, incredibly extreme people were really attacking both myself and Gen Spect.
Oh!
Funny enough, there was one throwaway line in the...
Oh, Karen, they're definitely talking about you. Karen is relentless, and I like love it because it's like she should be. You know, it's like Karen's like a dog with a bone. She's not letting it go, and she shouldn't. It's like, God, it's like, and I'm so grateful. Like, Karen's a teacher, right? And it's like, and Karen doesn't have kids of her own, but it's like, I always feel such an affinity to these like lifelong teachers, because it's like, especially ones who like didn't have their own kids, because it's like, you know, it's like they're so committed to protecting children and safeguarding children, and it's like they get it in the way that like a mom does, you know. And it's like I know how much she cares and why she cares. Yeah, relentless. And it's like, look, and you know what I mean? And it's like emotional, you know. And I'm just so grateful for women like this, because it's like Karen's just, you know, some teacher in the US who just happens to really care about kids and is like luckily smart enough and, you know, like to pick up on these things, has a surgical command of language to be able to really take people apart. And they don't want to mess with somebody like Karen, because Karen has nothing to lose in any of this. She's not tight. She's not running for like a political career. She's not trying to build a new WPATH, you know? It's like, so she can afford to really go at the heart of this thing. You know what I mean? Look how much it's killing them. It's like eating them alive, and they're going to play victim. Oh, here we go. Let's hear it.
Pioneer series that I think it was Mike Bailey made, that they kind of completely zeroed in on, and they took it out of context and they ran with it, and it was very, very distressing, and it really felt like we were in a fragile position. It felt like we hadn't earned our stripes, and people didn't really understand who we were and what we...
Yeah, no one knows who you are. Karen, you did that. No one knows who you are. It's everybody else is the problem, right? Still, everybody's the problem except for you. You guys are doing everything right. You're doing the great. You know, it's like, yeah, Karen is surgical with words. Karen, I don't know if you were here earlier in the stream when I was talking about you taking down that one kid during the New York like Posey Parker thing, that like one viral clip. It was so surgical, and it was you just eviscerated this TRA. I would not want to be on that other side. You know, she's so good with words. All right, here we go.
Stood for. I think now it's over a year later. I think the Pioneer series has earned its worth. Like, people know that it's a good series. That of course we don't agree with everything that's said. We don't even try to agree with everything that's said. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to lift up different experts in the field and what they might say in any given context, and what the research says.
Okay, what the research says, the experts, Stella, the experts and the research are why we're in this mess. Okay, in 2008, I lived in Peru for a year. And there's something called Sendero Luminoso, which was a Marxist guerrilla group that sought to overturn the government. And they were doing, really horrific guerrilla tactic terrorist strategies. There's a long time, I think in the late 80s and early 90s, where it was like totally ill-advised to even go to Peru. It was so dangerous. They were slaughtering indigenous communities using, garden tools and things like that, machetes and stuff. It all originated in La Universidad de Ayacucho. It originated with a professor in the University of Ayacucho who got really hardcore about like Marxism and like workers uprising and stuff like that. And he radicalized a bunch of his students through a course he was teaching. And they started off in the university and it went outward, and they ended up trying to seized power. And they were, I mean, I think that by the all said and done, they had mutilated and killed, I mean, babies, women, children, men, sons, for years. They were finally caught in 1994. It had been going on since like 86 or 87. Okay. So, you know, it's like experts are the reason why children are being mutilated. Okay. Marcy Bowers, so-called expert in the field. He's an MD. Again, the research is all bunk. It's all BS. It's stuff that, you know, nobody is really like replicating. They're just sort of carving out this niche that they want, and Stella trying to legitimize it again. It's like the whole appeal to authority fallacy. No, you guys have wrecked your credibility. Okay, your the therapeutic community has wrecked their credibility. These, you know, sexologists, these fake sciences, you're all quacks. You're all quacks. You're quacks like the OBGYNs who don't understand the sex binary, don't understand basic anatomy and physiology, are quacks. This is all quackery. And you guys legitimize it because you were able to infiltrate institutions that put their stamp on it. BS.
And at the time, I contacted you saying, we can't put out James Cantor. It's too fragile at the moment. It's too histrionic. It's too distressing. It's too, it's really, really heightened. And of course, this is social media. And honestly, like, if you stand out of social media, it's a lot less heightened. So we made that decision. It always stuck in my mind that I would never want to, bow to a mob. And also, I don't ever want to be part of something that's stifling really important work.
Bow to a mob. So people asking you questions, kind of like pointing things out, is bowing to a mob. You won't respond to anything. You're totally disingenuous and you're a liar. And this really important. Why is it so important that we understand what makes men's dick hard? Why is it always so the crux of everything? What's so important about that?
And I do believe James Cantor, I know he has some unpalatable ideas, but I think he's a brilliant researcher. And I think we have to give respect to the work, and we have to think about, sometimes we have to think about unpalatable ideas if we're really going to have a deep understanding of any given subject. So it was always irking me that we had, as such, put this by. And I always felt I owed it to James Cantor that one day we have to bring this episode out. And so we're finally bringing this episode out. A full...
Gross. Gross. I'm going to do a part 2. How long have I been on this stream? Let's get into this. I'm going to do a part 2 so that this doesn't get way too long. And I'm going to log right back in. All right. So I'm going to end this stream. We're going to get into this live stream. I'm going to do part 2. I'll see you guys. Bye-bye. Follow me on the next one.